Welcome back to Till All Are Done, the show where we aim to cover one toy for every character in the Transformers universe. G1 is our current target, and if you want to follow the series from the very beginning, check out the playlist linked in the description or click the card in the corner. But the best way to stay tuned for new episodes is to subscribe and see which figures I'm going to showcase next. If I start running down my list of favorite Transformers, the first Decepticon named is going to be Starscream. I love Starscream. I always find his antics a blast, no matter if he's more jovial like the G1 version or even more serious roles where he's running the gambit to rule them all. I always find his competition with Megatron side-splitting. I love his different Seeker Buddy variants of him, and I've always watched a ton of good storylines unfold involving Starscream and his treachery. When people think of the alt mode, they're used to the F-15 Eagle fighter jet or another earthly looking jet. You see that red and blue jet flying above you and his Seeker Buddies following close by, and it's go time. But for the War for Cybertron trilogy series, everyone is rocking their Cybertronian forms, and we see all the Seekers like Starscream take flight in Tetrajet form. If you recall the opening moments of the very first episode, More Than Meets the Eye Part 1, the Seekers are chasing Wheeljack and Bumblebee while in this type of Cybertronian jet known as a Tetrajet. So I've decided to lean into this weird iteration of my favorite Decepticon, and this is another toy that I'm covering based on impressive engineering. The War for Cybertron trilogy toy line continues to impress me, and this next figure is no different. We've done a figure from the Earthrise subline, and now we will be exploring the one that led before it, called Siege. So let's take a look at the War for Cybertron Siege Voyager class Starscream. Transformers. I usually start with the robot mode for all these episodes, but for this one we're gonna do things a little bit differently. We are starting with the alt mode, and this toy has a very different looking Starscream than we're used to. The Siege toy line is heavily inspired by the Tetrajet design in the opening moments of this very franchise, and I personally think it looks stellar. It still has the detailing found consistently across the toy line, but it harkens back to a Starscream before they crash landed for millions and millions of years on Earth. Look how nicely this alt mode came together. From front to back, I think this looks really awesome. You have the iconic Starscream colors on the figure with the red and blue pattern on top of the familiar gray. The transparent yellow windshield calls back to the cockpit on the jet and breaks up the deco nicely. They did as good a job as you can do with the Starscream color scheme, but some of the other Tetrajet Seekers might have a bit of an advantage on this one. I really love the way the Skywarp one turned out, but again, every mold with the black and purple just looks great. Let's not kid ourselves, even Hotlink looks great. It's not Starscream's fault on this one for once. So overall, I'm happy with the alt mode deco, but the only thing I don't like about it is the battle damage paint, and in general, this is a very divisive topic for many people who talk about the Siege toy line. While cool in premise, I am not fond of it and just prefer the clean finish on my toys. I wish the battle damage ended up being something of a buzzworthy Bumblebee toy line aesthetic, like the SS-86 Dead Autobots for example, instead of on these main toys. While it varies in degrees of application per toy, this Starscream figure got a ton of battle damage paint added in both alt mode and robot mode. Too much. Some of the other figures barely got any. Maybe a bit on the shins, some on the elbows, but Starscream is absolutely slathered in battle damage. There might be ways to paint over it and remedy it, but I'm not really that type of person who does these kinds of things. Prefer to keep it in my collection stock with a few exceptions, so it just sucks having the battle damage so prominent here. What's good though is the amount of pegs you can attach his null rays on. For the purposes of the alt mode, you can either peg them on the tips or on the wings or shoulder pegs or forearms. They all look good, you just get the null ray slightly at a different angle, and that's cool, you can customize it. I'm glad they added so many ports for these things. You get to the back of the Tetrajet and you have these nice jet boosters on top, as well as the boosters on the bottom, which are actually the feet. Very clever. I know this is the robot mode chest sitting on the back of the figure, but to me it blends in pretty nicely. I know with a bunch of people this chest plate is a point of contention because it becomes a faux part for the robot mode, and personally I'm not all that buggered about it. The only thing I wish was that it would stay on its joint, because when I'm transforming the figure, this thing comes off pretty easily. This is a well-known quality control issue with the toy, and it doesn't happen to every version of the toy, but for me, I did get unlucky and it is a problem. It's time to get into the transformation, and I have to clear something up. People say this toy shell forms because the backpack makes up most of the alt mode, completely ignoring how the nose cone transforms. So is every transformer with wings apparently a shell former by this logic? Another reason why people say it shell forms is because the alt mode shoves all the robot stuff underneath the Tetrajet, and again, that's wrong because most transformers hide their arms and legs underneath the body of some sort. We really need to stop throwing this term around unless we actually know what we're talking about. Save it for the actual examples of toys that really do it. This Starscream is not a shell former, and I'm going to stop talking about it right now and get on with the transformation. Anyways, it's great with a few issues, one of them being the one I mentioned earlier. I love the way the nose cone splits up and folds to become these shoulder pauldrons. The legs and arms fold out of the bottom of the Tetrajet pretty seamlessly, and if it wasn't for the feet encasing the jet boosters, you wouldn't even know those are the parts you need for the limbs. The wings unclip from their clean look, and the two back pieces that hold the alt mode together unclip, and before you know it, you are getting your great looking Starscream as the finished product. It really sucks about the chest plate clips, which always comes out when I'm transforming this toy, but thankfully not everybody's going to have that experience. My biggest worry though for this toy is found mid-transformation when pulling apart the two pieces of the nose cone. These two pieces are held together with these offset tabs that are pretty sturdy looking, but clipped together pretty tightly. That's good if you're going from robot mode to alt mode, but now when you are transforming the other way, I am struggling to pull these two pieces apart, to the point where I'm concerned about the amount of force I'm applying and whether these tabs are going to snap off. I prefer not to transform this toy because of it. I think these tabs are going to break one of these days, and I don't hear a lot of people mentioning this in reviews, so maybe it's an isolated incident, but man, this nose cone is on too tight, and I don't want to stress these tabs and put them on the path to oblivion. But now your Starscream has fully transformed and you just have to reattach the null rays. You might mistake which character this is by looking at the Tetrajet, but it's unmistakably who this is once you get it into robot mode. This is a G1 ass Starscream head to toe. You have a very nice Starscream head mold with an unamused scowl and red eyes with light piping. Wouldn't have it any other way. I personally don't mind light piping in a lot of my figures, but they do tend to mess it up sometimes. They have pieces of the backpack covered up with the plate on the back, but that's not the case here. You can shine it to the light and those red eyes look awesome. The shoulder pauldrons make me happy every time I assemble them, and they just look great as a result. They look really stellar with the red coloring, the blue outlining on the tips, and the exhaust fan detailing. All over this figure you have tons of dynamic detailing for our Seeker leader with panels, pistons, circuitry lines, and even more shapes. I really love that about the figures in the Siege line, although the amount of detail does vary per figure. They put a lot of work into making the figures look cybernetic, which I appreciate. We've seen the chest plate already, but now it's in its proper place. My favorite thing about it is the 2 turbines, which are detailed versions of his G1 chest look. The quote-unquote cockpit is segmented at the bottom to allow the waist to articulate, but it leaves a gap between the 2 pieces. I guess that's fine, because then you get that articulation you want, but I wonder if they could have figured it out. The arms look good with the gray base color and the blue highlighted on the arms. Again, I'm not happy about the battle damage right on the wrists, but you don't want me to keep harping on that. You already get the picture, you get it. Posing the null rays on the arms is really nice, considering we have 2 sets of pegs. You have the shoulders, so you can pose it in the G1 way as God intended, or you can put them on the elbow joints. Heck, you can place them on the legs for some reason if you want to. Now they're calf rays, sure. Last place you can't forget is hands if you want a more traditional gun look. I do wish the null rays had some more color though, instead of being all gray. A bit of black paint would have gone a long way here and would have remedied this. Speaking of legs, this is where it does something I've never seen before. The front parts of the legs are great, minus the battle damage, but the magic happens at the back where this figure has spring-loaded gap fillers. Spring-loaded gap fillers. When you transform this thing and stretch out the legs, you don't have to see the insides of the calves. You don't have to fold something into the hole to hide it. I absolutely can't recall seeing any other figure with this on it. You can correct me in the comments section if I've missed something that does have it, but this is incredible. Why don't more toys have this? Is it something expensive to put on the toy, ballooning the budget? Otherwise, we need to have more figures with this on them. And finally, the feet also look like magic, as they were able to engineer the feet out of the jet boosters and not compromise the figure being able to stand up and pose. Getting down to that very articulation, you have a good amount of ankle tilt up and down, and the ankles tilt inwards a bit, so it's very surprising the way you can position the feet and the figure still stands up supporting its own weight. The rest of the articulation is absolutely fantastic, even with the wings. You can push the wings all the way back, or you can rotate them because they are on a rotation joint. If you need them to be out of the way, you can do that. If you want to display more of them, you can do that. Excellent stuff. The head is on a ball joint and you can rotate it 360, nod, and really tilt it back thanks to the pin transformation joint. Shoulders rotate 360 and can T-pose all the way out. Good stuff. The shoulders can also tilt forward to a certain degree. The elbows are double jointed. Ooh, that feels good to say. And you almost have full elbows, almost, just barely. The shoulders protrude a bit outwards, preventing the full 180 degrees, but it's close. You also have full wrist rotation, so you can get the null rays in some great poses depending on which peg holes you're using or even holding them in the hands. You have a 360 waist thanks to the split cockpit, although you will have to pull the wing assembly back to spin it. Leg articulation is also excellent with a deep knee joint. You have 360 leg swivel and you can kick out the legs into a full splits pose. Look at the chunky hinge joint here, beautiful. Mwah. So articulation for this figure is immaculate. It's a cut above, befitting of our greatness, the true leader of the Decepticons, Starscream. And maybe that's how I feel about this figure. Greatness, with maybe a couple of little things that bother me just a bit. I'm always going to be collecting Starscream figures, but once I got this one, it certainly slowed down my need for more of the Cybertronian version. The only thing I'm missing is a good Earth mode jet Starscream, because all of mine are Cybertronian jets, but maybe the answer lies with the Earthrise mold for this figure. Maybe it turned out good, if this one is so good. Robot mode looks quintessentially Starscream. Alt mode is super unique in my collection, and the figure does things I've never seen done before on a figure, especially with those spring-loaded gap fillers. Again, I am concerned about a few things with the figure, in particular the nose cone, but otherwise I think this version of Starscream is a must-have and a 4.5 stars out of 5. We've explored the War for Cybertron trilogy twice now, and both times I've been enthralled by the offerings. I do think they will one day take another crack at the Sunbow Tetrajet and try to design it as clean to the model as they can, and maybe figure that out, and maybe it becomes a 5 out of 5 we're looking for. But until then, I'm absolutely happy with this Tetrajet, and I think they pulled it off completely. I disagree with a lot of critics of this toy. It's a stretch to call this thing a shell former, and I think people really need to get over their phobia of faux parts. But in life, it's good to have different opinions, as that's the spice of life. You can certainly tell me if I'm wrong down in the comments section. I'm not the type of person to take things personally, and I love the discussion. But that's it for our Starscream themed episode. If you're wondering when we will see my favorite Autobot, he's not going to be on for a very long while, but subscribing is the best way to see who is going to get showcased next. And hitting the notification bell helps to let you know when the videos come up. Until then, thanks for stopping by the JR Magnus channel, and peace out.